You have always felt things a little too much. Not just sadness, not just joy, everything. The weight of a song that catches you off guard, the particular ache of watching someone struggle when no one else seems to notice. The way a beautiful sunset can make you feel something so large you almost cannot hold it. You feel things that other people seem to walk right past. And somewhere along the way, you started to wonder if something was wrong with you.
Nothing is wrong with you, but something is different. And once you understand what it actually is, where it comes from, how deep it runs, and why so few people share it, you will never again apologize for the way you experience the world. Start with a number. Researchers estimate that somewhere between 15 and 20% of the human population are what psychologist Elaine Aron first identified in 1996 as highly sensitive persons. Not a disorder, not a diagnosis, a trait. A specific, measurable biological variation in the way a nervous system processes sensory and emotional information. Aron spent years developing the concept after noticing that a significant portion of her research subjects reported something consistent and distinctive. They processed the world more deeply than others. They noticed more, they felt more, and they were exhausted by more. The trait has a formal name, sensory processing sensitivity, and the key word is processing. Your brain does not simply receive information the way other brains do. It runs every input through a longer, more elaborate sequence of neural evaluation. You do not just hear the music, you feel its structure. You trace its emotional architecture. You follow it somewhere that most people never go. This is not imagination. This is measurable neurological difference. Neuroscientist Bianca Acevedo at the University of California, Santa Barbara used functional MRI imaging to compare the brains of highly sensitive people with those of non-sensitive people, while both groups looked at photographs of strangers expressing emotion. The results were striking. In the highly sensitive group, the areas of the brain associated with empathy, awareness, and integration of complex information showed significantly higher activation. Your brain is not broken. It is running a more complex program. Now go further back, because this trait did not appear in the modern world. It did not emerge from difficult childhoods or emotional wounds, although those experiences can amplify it. It goes all the way down into the evolutionary architecture of your species, and perhaps further. Biologist Wolfram Schultz and other researchers studying animal behavior have identified what appears to be a version of sensory processing sensitivity in over 100 non-human species. Birds, fish, fruit flies, dogs, primates. In every social species studied, a consistent minority of individuals displays heightened sensitivity to the environment, heightened responsiveness to threat and reward, and a tendency to observe before acting. They pause, they process, they watch the situation before entering it. And in stable, low-threat environments, these individuals show no particular survival advantage. But in changing environments, in times of disruption and instability, they dramatically outperform their less. Your sensitivity is not a modern problem. It is an ancient survival asset that was carried forward in the population precisely because it worked. But knowing that does not always make it easier to live with, because the same depth of processing that makes you extraordinary in certain moments also makes you more vulnerable in others. You feel criticism more sharply than others do, not because you are weak, but because your nervous system runs the feedback through a longer evaluation process. You are not just hearing what was said, you are feeling its implications, tracing its possible meanings, running it through a model of yourself and checking for inconsistencies. By the time another person has already moved on, you are still inside the experience. You become overwhelmed in environments that others find stimulating. Loud places, crowded events, back-to-back social obligations. What registers to others as a busy but manageable Saturday registers to your nervous system as a sustained state of overload. Too much input, processed too deeply for too long. And when your system tips into overload, you do not simply get tired. You need to genuinely withdraw. You need silence. You need time that belongs entirely to you, with no demands on your attention, so that the processing can complete and the system can reset.
This is not antisocial. This is maintenance. Psychologist Theodore Zeff, who has spent decades working with highly sensitive adults, describes this as the central paradox of the trait. The very depth of processing that makes sensitive people extraordinarily attuned to beauty, meaning, and the inner lives of others is the same mechanism that makes ordinary life feel, on certain days, like too much. You are not experiencing more than is there. You are experiencing all of what is there in a way that most people simply cannot access. Think about what that means in relationships. You have probably been told at some point that you are too much, too emotional, too intense, too serious, that you overthink things, that you need to toughen up. What those observations usually mean, translated honestly, is that the person speaking them is processing the same moment at a different depth. They are not wrong about their experience, but they are wrong to assume their depth is the standard depth and yours is the deviation.
Your sensitivity means that when you love with an awareness of another person that most people never develop. You notice the small shifts in their mood before they have named it. You sense when something is wrong before they have spoken it. You feel their pain as something close to your own, not as a performance of empathy, but as an actual neurological event. The brain imaging research confirms this. Your mirror neuron systems activate more intensely in response to others' emotional states. You do not choose to feel what others feel. Your brain does it automatically, at a level below conscious control. This is an extraordinary gift in the right relationship. It creates a quality of intimacy and attunement that most people spend their whole lives searching for and never quite find. But it also means you need more from a relationship than most people are prepared to give. You need honesty. You need depth. You need a partner who does not experience your intensity as a problem to be managed. Because when the relationship requires you to dim yourself in order to be tolerable, something in you begins to disappear.
There is also something that researchers have only recently begun to fully map. Something that connects your sensitivity to a far older system of human knowledge. Across cultures and throughout history, there has always been a small group of people in every community who occupied a distinctive role. They were not warriors. They were not simply farmers or builders. They were the ones others came to when they needed to understand something difficult. When the community needed someone to interpret a dream, to read the signs in the natural world, to sit with the dying, to sense what was moving beneath the surface of things. They were the advisors, the healers, the priests, the oracles, the mystics. The proportion of these individuals in historical societies matches remarkably well with the modern estimates for sensory processing sensitivity. 15 to 20%. Always a minority. Always necessary. Always occupying the space between the ordinary and the invisible. Your sensitivity is not a modern malfunction. It is an ancient calling that lost its cultural context. And now, you live in a world that was not built for you. A world that rewards speed over depth, volume over nuance, certainty over careful observation. A world that schedules every hour, fills every silence, and treats rest as something you earn, rather than something your nervous system requires as a biological necessity.
You were built for a different rhythm, a rhythm that included long stretches of silence, deep observation of the natural world, and meaningful conversation that went somewhere real. You are not failing to adapt to the world. The world has not yet adapted to you. Elaine Aron, whose original research gave the trait its scientific name, has spent the last 3 decades documenting what happens when highly sensitive people stop trying to be something else, when they stop apologizing for their depth, stop forcing themselves into environments that drain them, and start building lives that honor the way their nervous system actually works. What she finds consistently is that these individuals report a quality of experience, a richness of inner life, an access to meaning and beauty and connection that most people only glimpse in their very best moments.
This is what your sensitivity was for. Not to make you suffer, not to make you difficult, but to make you one of the people who could actually see what was happening, feel what mattered, and translate it into something that the rest of the world needed but could not find on its own. You have always felt things a little too much, and now you understand that there is no such thing as too much. There is only depth, and you were built for it.